The underlying beliefs will color your Vedana, your feeling about things, will color your perception, the story you tell about what you just saw, and will color the proliferations, the additional thinking and the additional storytelling. What the Buddha also said was, the more storytelling you tell yourself, the more your brain, your mind amplifies that story. It's the nature of the mind not to tell a balanced story. It's the nature of the mind to reinforce an early belief. What we're going to do today is to try and figure out, to try and understand, first and foremost to understand what goes on in our minds, what goes on when we have inputs, when we see things, hear things, feel things, and think about things, and how that affects our moods and our perception, how we see the world, understand the world. And in the end, try and understand how it creates suffering for ourselves and how we can hopefully avoid it. The way Brother Tan Hua Chai gave that introduction just now puts a lot of pressure on me to a very high expectation. So okay, so the perception of that speech, places a elevated anxiety mood. So I would like today's session to be a lot like this, to be able to experience things not in mental conceptions, but in actually what you feel inside. So I was telling Brother Didi Brother Niwan just now, I was sitting here at 8:50 waiting for the 9 o'clock thing to start, and then everybody was silent and tension in the air was... I'm not used to all that, and I'd really rather not, but as Brother Niwan says, cannot be helped, I'm not sure, but okay. So, as you can see, I am not a very formal person. I don't like formalities. I much prefer interaction. So, throughout today, I welcome questions at any time. Interrupt me if you hear something you don't understand, disagree with, or anything. Yeah, I am not particular about please. None of that. The other thing, we will try and do this interactively. So I will describe ideas, and then we will try and close our eyes, go inside, and explore those ideas in real time. And then we'll open our eyes, and then I'll ask you, what did you feel, and what you felt, and whether you were able to experience those ideas, if you had difficulties, and if you saw something else I didn't expect, then you can talk about those things also. Yeah. So when Didi Niwan asked me to come, he was very, very proactive. Something like September last year, he started bugging me to, when are you coming back? Can we do this? Give me a topic. Give me a subject. So I picked this particular subject because I am getting more and more exposed to the question of mental health. A lot of times we think mental health is those crazy people, but more and more I see people coming to the monastery. Mental health is most of us. The kind of worries that we meet, the fear that people have, the depression that people have, is a lot of us. And even more so, this Chinese New Year I come back, my own mother is 89 years old, and she's had a fall, she's broken a hip bone, she's had a hip replacement. Then just yesterday, I went to visit my father-in-law in an old folks' home, and I noticed that he is no longer his jovial self, staying in an old folks' home. He has a lot of anxieties. He fears the people who are around him. He looks at the security person and he's telling me, "Oh, you see that one, that one." My dad also passed away from Alzheimer's 12 years ago. So there are a lot of things that I notice now, that our mental habits, the way we interpret what we see, creates those fears, creates those sadness. And by the time Alzheimer's starts to set in, dementia starts to set in, I don't think you have any chance to try and change course in your mental habits. As Venerable Radha said, a lot of science have now gone into this kind of studies. Apart from the neuroscience looking inside, the one study that I am very much influenced by is something called the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. It was a study done by a medical insurance company in America. I told this story last year also, but some of you may not have heard it. So the medical director there said, okay, let's introduce weight loss program for our most obese customers. If they can cut down their weight by so much, chances are our medical payout will be a lot less. Make sense, huh? So from the company point of view, it's a win-win situation. They become slimmer, we pay out less, everybody wins. Even though we pay for the initial weight loss management program. After a while, he managed to recruit 200 something of their clientele, gave them a weight loss program, and they actually lost weight. But when they almost reached their target ideal weight, many of them quit. I don't want to join the program anymore. So this medical director was a bit puzzled. Hey, we come up with such a good program. We are succeeding in reaching a target weight, but you are spoiling my data, quitting the program. So he went and interviewed a lot of them, interviewed all the 200. So why do you want to quit the program? No lah, not interested lah, no time lah. And he didn't get any useful information out of those 200 until he came across one woman who said, to be fat is to be invisible. What do you mean to be fat? Well, then she said, when I'm fat, people don't harass me. They don't whistle me. And then he started asking deeper questions and then discovered that she had been sexually abused as a child, and now she hides behind looking non-attractive. And then he said, oh, okay, went back to interview the other 200 again, and then discovered a lot of patterns of abuse in those 200 people that they didn't describe as the reason for quitting the weight loss program. Anyway, he took all this interview stuff and went and presented it in an obesity conference in front of all the other dietitians lah, weight loss management doctors lah, whatever. And after he made his presentation, all the other doctors told him, hey, doctor, I think you're very gullible. People give you excuses for not keeping to their diet and you believe them. He said, no, these are sincere interview answers. And he was struggling because the whole conference just poo-poo his study lah. But so happens the American CDC, Center for Disease Control, one of the assistant director was sitting there, vice president was sitting there. So during tea time they were talking, and the CDC guy said, Your data set, 200 people, too small, people will ignore. Can you get a bigger data set? So he went back to his board of directors. Then they said, okay, try 20,000. So they then put on to their form, as you know, as you apply for, when you subscribe to medical insurance, you got to fill out one long borang, your name, your age, your pre-existing conditions, whether you have existing high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes or whatever. And then they will ask you, okay, do you smoke, drink, do you do any high-risk sports or anything like that? Okay. Then they ask you other details like family history. Does anybody else in your family have diabetes, have this, that or the other? Then they ask you a bit about background history, your career lah, your family lah, how many children you have lah. And then they added one section. If you would like to participate in a study, please fill out this following section. When you were young, did you have enough to eat? Did you have anybody to talk to when you were in trouble? Did you feel cared for? And then it goes on a bit deeper. Were you ever bullied? Did you find yourself physically abused, sexually abused, emotionally neglected, physically neglected? Did your parents separate, divorce? Was there domestic violence? Did anybody in the household go to jail? Was there depression in the family? Was there drug use, alcohol use in the family? And out of the next 22,000 customers, 17,000 volunteered and joined the program, answered that section. So they take 17,000 forms, punch it through the computer, and try and correlate that special section, how many kinds of suffering, how many, what he called adverse childhood experience. So if you have been physically abused, you count that as one. If you've been emotionally neglected, you count that as one. If your parents are divorced, that's one. If somebody uses alcohol or drugs excessively in the house, count that as one. So that becomes a score of 4. Correlate that versus pre-existing condition. They come in, they already tell you, okay, I have hypertension or not. It turns out the higher your adverse childhood experience, ACE score, the higher the more pre-existing medical conditions you have. And it is strongly correlated. And he says the correlation is so strong, it's much stronger than number of eggs you eat in a week. That it's much stronger than how many cups of coffee you drink. So then it goes on. Of course, if you have these childhood things, you can expect mental health issues, depression higher, anxiety issues higher, suicidal thoughts all higher, expected. And then goes on. It turns out when you have those childhood issues, you also have more marriages.
No.
Or no marriage. You also have more.
So many Chinese not married.
Yeah. So many, but amongst Ang Mohs where all the marriages are short-term one, you have a string of them. Yeah. And then they also have multiple jobs. They quit one job, join another job, quit one job, join another job. Mostly either fight with people or depressed or cannot get along, those kind of issues. Don't want to solve work issues, right? Just quit and go on to another job. And they are more likely to be substance users, more alcohol, more cigarettes, more drugs. And of course, in the end, shorter life. The medical company, the insurance company tracks them through how much claim they make and at what point they die. This study was something like 30, 40 years ago, I can't remember. And so they also know people die earlier because of childhood trauma. They say they filter out, okay, what if you have childhood trauma but you don't smoke, don't drink? Compared to a person who doesn't have childhood trauma, don't smoke, don't drink, will they still die about this, at the same age? No, the one with the childhood trauma dies earlier. Don't know why. I think now we know why. Now we kind of know it's the anxieties and the mental habits make you choose to do things differently in life. You don't take care of yourself as much. You don't have as many friends. Stuff like that. Here's what people have done. So they start, some of the more progressive doctors will start screening children for childhood trauma in school and then try and help them manage. It turns out if children, especially in their pre-teen, teen years, have somebody to talk to, a grandmother, an auntie, a good school teacher, hopefully a good Dhamma school teacher, whom they can confide in, ask for help, talk to, they experience less of the negative impact. Then I've also discovered amongst my friends, amongst people I talk to in the monastery, even if you have a sibling who would look after you or you can share your fear with, to have somebody next to you when you are distressed as a child, that's a protective factor. So now the question is, for people in this room, and then if you have any of those issues, if you have a lot of worries, a lot of anxieties, can we do something about it? My hope is that with meditation, with a bit of awareness, that we can start to lower our own stress levels. I also go to a prison to teach in Australia every second Friday night or so. And as you can imagine, when I told them this story about the medical insurance company and adverse childhood experience, the guy says it, we are that bunch. That's why we are all here. So, and they appreciate that to be able to sit down and rest and not worry is a privilege. The idea is to learn how to go there often, go there ourselves. So, alright, as I was saying, I like this to be an experiential thing. I'm going to introduce concepts as we go and then experience them. So I would like to straight away do a 20-minute meditation. I invite you to find a comfortable place to sit comfortably, and experience what a bit of relaxation feels like. As you're sitting there, close your eyes. I would like you to bring your attention to your abdominal area. The stomach and the stomach muscles. See if you can relax your stomach muscles as well as the muscles behind the lumbar muscles, so that you can sit upright with as little muscle tension as possible. And you realize that before this, we use a lot more muscle tension than is actually necessary to sit upright. And as you relax those muscles, the physical sensation is actually more pleasant. And not only that it's pleasant, you can almost feel the tiredness or the tightness or the anxieties flow out from your body. It's as if the tiredness and the tension had been there, but by holding the muscles tight, we mask those uncomfortable feelings. And what you'll also notice is that when we relax, the breath, the rising and falling of the tummy appears to you straight away. It's like you're doing breath meditation without trying. You're aware of the rising and falling of the stomach. Almost automatically. I would like to invite you to learn how to read your breath. You know, sometimes when you are holding a baby or holding a little puppy or holding a little kitten, the way that baby or the little animal, creature, pet, breathe tells you how that baby is feeling. If the baby wants to cry, the breath is different. If the baby is peaceful and quiet, the breath is different. If the baby is very comfortable in your arms, the breath is nice and smooth. On the other hand, you can also sense any tensions, tiredness or sadness. Also just by observing how the breath goes in and out. more curious you are, the more you want to understand what's going on, the more likely you will stay quiet and observe. If you're impatient and you're not interested, of course the mind will quickly jump to something else, some distraction. But because you care for this person who's breathing, act of caring holds your attention, even though you may be facing an uncomfortable feeling. The other thing you'll notice is that while we are in this space, those feelings are not static, they change. As you become better at observing, as you become more familiar, you will see more, you will notice more details. Okay, I would like to invite you to expand the awareness upwards to include the chest area, the lungs, the shoulders, the back. Allow all that to also soften and relax. To sit upright with the least effort required. You may come across more discomforts, more tiredness, more tensions. The idea is to hold a safe space so that these unconscious muscles can relax. then let the attention drift upwards again to the neck area. If you would like, you can tilt your head left and right, forward and back. Find any of the neck muscles that are tight. And then allow the muscles to relax. There's some tiny muscles up at the top, at the back of the head that connects to the neck. Sometimes this is where people have migraines. Then the jaw muscles that move the jaw up and down. And the facial muscles. And then there are muscles around the eyes. Those muscles that rotate the eyeballs left and right, up and down. You notice these are all the muscles that we tighten. Almost as if it's a bulletproof mask whenever we don't feel safe. But since everybody here have their eyes closed, you can relax all these muscles. And nobody will see. Check also the muscles on your forehead, the bit between the eyebrows. Okay, now the next part, I'd like you to move your attention to about an inch or two behind the forehead, behind the eyes. This is where our brain is. Scientifically speaking, the brain does not have sensory nerves, just thinking neurons. Now sometimes I sense a dark cloud, a lump of heaviness. On days that I think a lot, the brain feels like it has been squeezed and crumpled up. see if you can somehow peel back those fingers, those mental fingers that squeeze the brain. Try not to crumple the brain. See if you can fluff up the brain again, like fluffing up a pillow. A mental image that I use is to try and breathe with the air going up the nostrils into the brain cavity, just like when you inflate a brown paper bag. Bring the fresh air in and allow stale air to go out. And then when you're quite comfortable, you can just enjoy the peace and the comfort that comes with very relaxed breathing. Do recognize the pleasure of this breathing. When there's this sense of enjoyment, this sense of pleasure, then there is no need to work at it. It's like you're doing your favorite hobby. You're hanging out with a friend. You can view this breath as a BFF, best friends for life. Remember earlier I was talking about having a childhood friend whom you can depend on, whom you can confide in, who will comfort you and soothe you when you're in trouble. The breath can be that friend. Only we had time to look inwards, relax the stomach, this friend will appear. Throughout the rest of today, we will be coming back to visit this friend a few times, very often, we will get to know this friend very well. We're going to come out soon. You can do a quick scan of your body. And you probably notice that there's still a lot of other tensions, other discomforts. Somewhere there in the body. And we don't have to solve everything. It's just the nature of the body to always have these discomforts. It's just how the body is. Even so, you can still enjoy the breath. I invite you to have 10 more happy breaths, and then when you're ready, open your eyes. Okay, how's everyone feeling?
Good.
Thanks.
Any questions, any comments, any complaints? Normally at this point I don't normally get a lot of questions. Everybody is so contented. But yes, so what did that experience demonstrate to you? How you feel is very much directed by what goes on in your head. Not what happens outside. The body that you felt, the discomforts that you felt, was it only there when we paid attention, or has it always been there when you first arrived? But we only noticed it when we paid attention, right? And a lot of our moods are like that. Like I was saying to you, my father-in-law being so anxious in an old folks' home, the anxiety is with him all the time, and I'm not sure whether he's aware of it. He's soaking in it the whole day. And I suppose if he's not told about it, or even if he's told about it and if he's not receptive to listening to it, if he believes that being on guard, being careful all the time is good for him, then he will stay in that mood. And that's what these children of adverse childhood do. They grow up thinking the world is not a safe place, so they're always on being careful. They don't want to embarrass themselves, they don't want to expose themselves to any risk, so they can't relax. Whereas if we allowed ourselves to relax, you will find that all these accumulated poisons, as Brother Huat Chai pointed out, they're sitting there all the time, and we keep collecting it. We keep storing it up. Okay, when does an observation, something that you experience, become toxic? So you have a conversation with your boss, you have a conversation with your spouse, you have a conversation with your children or your parent. Some of us walk away feeling good, some of us walk away thinking, he doesn't understand, or he's so mean. How can he do that? It's so unfair. So the Buddha has this model about what a being is, not just a human being, any being. When we call it a living being, the Buddha says that living being will always have 5 khandhas, 5 aggregates. This is part of the, the deeper part of Buddhism that I don't hear people talk about very much, but it's a whole chapter in Samyutta Nikaya. So the Buddha says, we have this physical body. The physical body has all our 5 senses on it: the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. And that provides us the interface. Some of you who are in IT will call it the API between the world outside and the world inside. The mind can't see. The eyes do the seeing. The eyes feed the information to the mind or the brain. And in the mind, the Buddha divided the mind into 4 items. So the body is only one out of the 5 items that he focused on. You stick around long enough and you realize the Buddha's main focus is what goes on in the mind, not what goes on in the body. He says the body is dukkha, it's a bother, it's a suffering. So then in the remaining 4 khandhas, he says one is consciousness, that you are aware of what's going on. But the other 3 are practically automatic processes. When the inputs go in, you immediately have a vedana, a feeling. You quickly decide, or you don't decide, it happens, it tells you, this is a nice sight, or this is a nice sound, or this is an unpleasant sound, this is an unpleasant sight, unpleasant smell or pleasant smell. You don't get to decide. The mind decides it for you. You have to slowly condition something that happens before that to say whether it's nice or not. So by the time at this age, I like to use the example of durian. For us who are mostly durian lovers, will like durians, but you give durian to an Ang Moh, he will pinch his nose and why? Does he get to decide I like durian or I don't like durian? Do we get to decide whether we like durian or don't like? Most of the time, it's not what you decide, it's conditioned. And then, the next thing that happens very quickly is you tell a story about what you have just experienced. I want more, or yeah, please move that away from me, or you see it as, this person is here because She was invited. This person is here because she has duties to do, so she has to turn up early. This person is here because demanding somebody. So the perception tells the stories around what you see. Again, the stories happen so quickly before you choose. The fourth part is when you actually have reactions, additional reaction, as in, I wonder why he's walking out there, and you start getting suspicious and you keep on looking further and you try and pick up more information, or you decide, I need to walk away, and even this is automatic. Sometimes you see somebody you don't like, you just turn quickly, and you haven't decided that you want to turn quickly. It happens so fast. The way the Buddha explained it, all these three processes happens because of past conditioning, something he calls views, which includes preferences and prejudice. Like in the case of my father-in-law, he has decided the home that he's staying in, a lot of people there are not trustworthy, cannot be depended on. So he starts looking out, don't know whose car that is passing by, looks very familiar but not sure. Even as I was trying to talk to him about how he was, what he ate in the morning, he was suspicious all the time. And that keeps his anxiety levels high. On the other hand, people who don't have these levels of anxiety, most of you, when you came in here, you are amongst friends, you quickly become relaxed and you shake hands with everybody, 恭喜发财 here and there, and Happy New Year, 新年快乐. And because you perceive the people around you as friendly and safe, right? The underlying beliefs will color your Vedana, your feeling about things, will color your perception, the story you tell about what you just saw, and will color the proliferations, the additional thinking and the additional storytelling. What the Buddha also said was, the more storytelling you tell yourself, the more your brain, your mind amplifies that story. It's the nature of the mind not to tell a balanced story. It's the nature of the mind to reinforce an early belief. Once you think something is right, you try and look for more evidence that confirms your evidence, rather than to see if that's really true. Are you sure? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe let's see what. Some minds are more inclined, or I take that back. Depends on your underlying belief that it drives the mind towards those. The way you look for evidence. If you already think this person is no good, this boss is always unfair towards me, then every interaction, every word he says, you try and look for, yeah, see, he said that again. Isn't it? So, yeah. Which is why then in the Noble Eightfold Path, in the Noble Eightfold Path, what's the first factor? Right view. To see the world correctly. To see the world as it really is. The world is not all beautiful, but it's also not all bad. There are good people around, there are bad people around. By and large, most of us are just unskillful, not intentionally, willfully evil. Isn't it? That includes the boss you don't like. he probably doesn't know how to be a better boss. If he knew, he would most likely be a better boss. It's just that he doesn't know how to be a better boss. Likewise, the mother, the father, the son, the daughter, the spouse, chances are they don't know how to be better. Or even if they knew theoretically how to be better, they don't feel safe opening up and be better. Isn't that the case most of the time? So the next little sit that we're going to do, I would like you to go inside and see what frightens you, what stops you from doing the things that you know is good. Sometimes we can't forgive. We know should be done, but cannot. Why? There is a belief that if I forgive, then the other person gets scot-free. Unfair. If I forgive, then I got nothing to complain about. I can't say he's so terrible. If I forgive, then what will happen to the relationship? You mean I now have to be nice to him? A lot of little beliefs like that sits on emotional energy. It doesn't sit with logic. The logic, most of the time, we know we should do what is good. A lot of times, it's the emotional block that stops us, right?
I suppose the expectation is when you forgive, you don't expect anything in return from the person that you forgive. It's within yourself rather than an expectation that the other party that you're forgiving is going to react to you in a positive way.
Yes. If you can mend the relationship, all the better, of course. Then both parties become healthier. But if the other party is too difficult, at least you yourself don't carry that poison, as Brother Pachai mentioned earlier. I was saying 2 nights ago that there was this experience that I had. I was teaching meditation online. So I said the same thing, be friends with your breath. When you're friends with your breath, you feel very comfortable. If you're holding a pet that you can trust, you're holding a baby that you know you love, then the connection is there, the feeling is there, you feel very comfortable. The breath is very relaxing. Ajahn goes on to say, most of us have forgotten what it feels like to be a small baby sitting on your mother's chest, experiencing that breath. But now that I've pointed out to you and showed you what it feels like, you can immediately connect. It's so comfortable, right? And our breath is like that. When you recognize your own breath as being very comfortable, very reassuring. So when I gave the instruction, one girl said, what if the breath don't be friends with me? And that was, when I thought about it and said, well, okay, my guess is that there's something about yourself you don't like. Here's the analogy that Ajahn once gave. If you sat in a room with your best friend, you can hang out there for a few hours, chit-chat. Even if you don't say anything, you can still hang out there an hour, very comfortable. You put your enemy inside there, the boss you don't like, or whoever else the neighbor you don't like, or whatever, sit in there for 3 minutes, it's like, can I get out? Can I go somewhere else? Pull out a handphone, okay, I don't really want to look the other way. So this girl was feeling that way. The breath is not a friend. So I said, most likely you're sitting with an enemy inside. Most likely the space inside is not like your bedroom. If it's like your bedroom with comfortable cushions and pillows and blankets everywhere, you should be able to go inside and sit and be very comfortable. But if you go inside and you feel like, not safe, stinky, then of course, very hard to become friends with your breath. So anyway, after we did the meditation, I also asked the same question, any question, any comments? And she raised her hand and said, you know what you said just now? When I was young, my father told me, I don't want you as my daughter. And she went on to say, I didn't know that affects meditation. It's, for most of us, a comment like that from 20, 30 years ago, you wouldn't be conscious about it, right? You remember it, of course, when someone asks you, you remember it, but you wouldn't think you're thinking about it all the time. But yet, in her case, it affected her meditation. Can't be friends with my breath. When I sit down and I sense my breath, it's not a friend. Then she said, what can we do about it? So I asked her further question. I said, all right, your father's childhood, what was it like? Don't know really very much about my father's childhood because father kind of left early. But know about my mother's childhood. My mother was working as a farmer in a very poor place and didn't have time for the children, and father's life probably even worse. So I then suggested, can you blame your father for saying what he said, if he probably might have heard worse things from his own father? If he had heard worse things from his own father, and he said that one sentence to you, it's probably a big improvement already. But then I pointed out to her, her grandfather, whom she doesn't know very well, paternal grandfather, probably went through World War II, Japanese times. She's from Hong Kong. This was an online meditation retreat. So probably in that Nanjing area, which wasn't pleasant, just before World War II, there was a massacre there. So as we trace backwards, if we can't blame the father, then we should blame the but we can't blame the grandfather because we should blame the Japanese. So, but if we blame the Japanese soldier, then we should blame the Japanese emperor. No, wait, we should blame the emperor's father before him. And then you realize, this is just samsara, isn't it? Everybody is suffering. You can't push the blame very far and find the original person who started it all. And so then, who do you forgive? You forgive the Lord when you realize there's nobody to blame. Yeah, so we forgive oneself, forgive others, to realize that even things that we ourselves do wrong is because of conditions that has been passed down, that we have experienced. Even ourselves is not to be blamed. We are also product of our conditioning. Which is why then, when we have 5 precepts and you have a group of friends who also publicly declare, I won't kill, I won't steal, I won't lie, I won't cheat, then you're in a safe space And you can let down all your bulletproof vests, you can let down your the masks that you have to wear, and relax. So while you're here today, please indulge in relaxing amongst very, very safe friends. Allow yourself to not carry and especially not create new stress. Whatever old stress is there, let it go. Okay, let's try another meditation.
Earlier, I thought it was really relaxing when you asked us to relax our abdominal muscles, and that helped me focus immediately on the breath. But then after a few breaths, then I realized that actually my abdominal muscles are tight again. So I have to go back and consciously relax it. And I was doing that very regularly. So very, I can feel that, okay, once you tell your muscles to relax, it does. But after a few breaths, it automatically, maybe it's just how I breathe, right? I tend to use my cores to breathe, for example. Do you have a suggestion on how to be more relaxed, I guess, in the abdominal muscles without kind of having to keep doing this, going back and checking?
Second factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, right intention, I think is normally translated as Ajahn Brahm doesn't like the idea, he says that's not quite precise. Sama Sankappa, he says it's probably closer to right motivation or right inclination, where your guiding force, like she was saying, some people want to control, that's their primary guiding force, a primary driving force. But in Ajahn Brahm's lingo, is make peace, be kind, be gentle. The Pali text actually says something like renounce, no harm, no ill will. It's framed in negative terms. Ahimsa is violence, ahimsa, non-violence. Abhayapada is ill will, abhayapada, no ill will. Ajahn Brahm says, actually, that's the quirk of the Pali language, to frame one word as a negative of another word. But it says, take it as goodwill and take it as gentleness rather than non-harming. So in Ajahn Brahm's English translation is make peace, be kind, be gentle. You've heard that before. Ajahn Chah, in advising Ajahn Brahm just before he became paralyzed, he was going to send Ajahn Brahm to Australia and teach. He says, if you ever become a teacher, the most important quality is non-harming, kindness. Likewise, when we sit and meditate, the idea of kindness is very, very important. Which is why, personally also, I'm drawn to Ajahn Brahm's meditation style after I've tried the Vipassana style. The Vipassana style it's very structured, it's very instructional and very procedural, in that you must now do this, you must now do that, you must note, you must keep on noting every second. Whereas what you have experienced just now, you realize that when you have a connection with something, the attention just stays. If you're interested in the breath, if you're interested in the baby, if you are caring about a sick puppy, you can just sit there and be with that puppy for a long, long time without thinking. You're just holding space, keeping the puppy safe to rest and recuperate. Likewise, when we have that anxiety of performing in a meditation, the body is in a doing, working, performing mind state. But if you have a rest mind state, the body gets to relax. It doesn't have to tense up and do. So, if you can, now, we want to go into a mode that is very comfortable and very relaxing. Not working, not trying to force a particular outcome. When you have a sick child and you say, come, lie down, rest, relax. You don't say, no, you can't relax this way, you must straighten your body and put your hands by your side. You can't, right? Then the baby can't relax, or the child can't relax. Relax however you feel comfortable. So when you sit down and relax the abdominal area, don't think of it, okay, my back has to be straight. And then he said, relax as in really relax. Not doing relaxation. Right? Then hopefully the muscles will. Some of it is old habits. We do tense up. If you're the kind who, like my father-in-law, who's trained. He used to be in the army before, so probably close to the front line. So you can imagine how from his experience, he would be very vigilant. But when you find space to meditate, when you sit in a center such as this, where everybody has just declared, I will not kill, I will not steal, don't worry. Allow yourself to relax. Then hopefully your subconscious mind will not tighten those muscles again. A lot of it is still habit, the habit is still there, but as you gain more trust and more familiarity, then you can relax.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, everybody's ready. Come, let's close our eyes. Same thing, go back to the abdominal area and relax those muscles. Feel very safe in this place. Safe enough that you can relax, seriously relax. And you know that some homes, some $1 million homes have got all the luxuries and all the best blankets and best beds and best sofas. And yet there are some other homes which just feels very homely. See if you can make this space, not make this space, but perceive this space as home. This space inside is actually private to you and your breath only. The neighbor sitting next to you can't see what is going on in here. It's sort of like the Batman cave that you can relax into. And when the breath comes to you or appears to you, greet the breath just as you would a dear friend. And again, that rising and falling feeling. Is very reassuring. And if you want to ask that friend, how are you today? How are you doing? The breath does not answer with words. The friend answers in the rhythm of the breath. Now that you've reacquainted with the breath, the other thing you might notice is that the breath can be felt in every part of the body. My explanation is that even though the air goes through the nostrils into the lungs, the action of breathing involves the rising and falling of the chest, the rising and falling of the stomach, the rising and falling of the shoulders. Therefore, it feels like you can feel it throughout the body. And it is this rising and falling that seems to illuminate the sensations in those different parts of the body, the movement will identify the tiredness and the tightness and highlight it to you. It's as if like the breath is the back of house manager that looks after this body. Imagine the breath as a very kind manager. Wherever there is tightness or tiredness, the mind would bring metta, loving kindness, to that tight spot and slowly soothe and massage those spots. And it's not something you have to do. The breath does it as soon as you notice those tight spots. Like the breath and the observer working in tandem as a tag team. As you sense the breathing, try and infuse it with lots of metta, lots of kindness, lots of TLC. And let the breath take it everywhere. Spread it around. The more kindness that there is in this space, the more pleasant it will feel. A kind space is a safe space. Another thing is that when kindness is the predominant mood, then even discomforts does not appear unpleasant. Okay, it's a bit unpleasant, but you are able to, or the mind will willingly stay with the discomfort to help give it space to rest. going to explore a new area. Let's bring our attention to the heart area and check out if we are holding any old emotions. See how the heart feels, the seat of your emotions, and see if there's any tensions and tiredness there. Just as we had done with the abdominal area and the rest of the body, if there are any discomforts, hold a safe space and let those tiredness flow out. All the time, let the breath be a partner in soothing the heart. As you feel the breath go in and out, let the breath massage the heart with lots of TLC. Again, see if you can let relaxation happen rather than do relaxation. one experiment before we end. See if it is easier to relax if you had a smile on. Does it feel more pleasant? When we relax our facial muscles, and allow a gentle smile to appear. Despite whatever you feel in the heart, if there's a prevailing sense of friendliness and kindness, that can engender trust and genuine goodwill. As you breathe in and out, let the breath carry kindness and gentleness throughout the body. The more there are these positive feelings, the more comfortable this space becomes. The more the mind and the body can relax. 11 o'clock, I'm reminded that we have a morning tea this morning. If you're comfortable where you are and you want to continue sitting for a bit, please carry on. If you want to go for morning tea, please carry on.